I want to take some time to talk about what pride means to me and to encourage all trans, non-binary, LGBTQ plus people out there to embrace pride in who you are and challenge the shame that society often instills in so many of us. It may come as a surprise to some of you, but I identify as a transgender woman. And now that we have that out of the way, I also identify as lesbian and on the asexual spectrum. Some may say that these identities are about my gender and who I am or am not attracted to, so what's the point? What's the big deal? Well, probably the biggest thing about what brings pride and why this is important is because I had to fight to be who I authentically am, primarily regarding my identity as a trans woman. I was assigned male at birth, and everyone constantly reinforced this idea that I should be a man, a cisgender man to be exact. I should be heterosexual, and I should be allosexual, which just means somebody who does experience sexual attraction. Essentially the opposite of asexuality. Obviously, people didn't actively use these terms since, some of these terms, especially when I was growing up, things like cisgender and allosexual, people didn't really use. But regardless of all that, the messages were clear. The messages that people sent were constant and subtle, leading to many internalized beliefs about myself and about trans and non-binary people broadly. Just anybody who did not conform to gender norms, so to speak. I knew from about the age of 3 that I was different, that I was meant to be a girl. But that's typically seen as abnormal or even impossible for people like me that are assigned male at birth. Like, that is not seen as a reality for many people. I identified one way, but I felt forced to occupy a completely different series of identities, a life that simply was not my own. The fight to be me didn't just involve fighting against and pushing against all the oppressive external bullshit that so many trans and non-binary people, especially trans women, and even more so trans women of color, have to fight against on a daily or near daily basis. This fight did and still does also include this intense internal struggle. Struggle that involves things like shame, doubt, self-loathing, and fear. This inner critic often telling me that I'm not trans enough to transition, or that I'm a freak and should be ashamed of myself, or that I'll never pass, so what's the point of trying to transition, or that no one will ever love or accept me. All of these messages that came from constantly being bombarded by transphobic messages coming from every direction, whether it was people around me or the media or other sources. Obviously, it's much, much easier said than done, as I often say in my videos, but despite all of these pressures, I was able to step into the world as Chloe, and to this day I'm able to remain in this world as Chloe. Being who we authentically are, regardless of who you are and how you identify, should not be so fucking difficult. It should not involve so much internal strife and external oppression just to live as me, just to live as you. I fought to be me, and I will never give up being me. Despite the numerous and ongoing hardships I've experienced, I'm still the happiest that I have ever been, by a long shot. I would be remiss to also not mention all of the people, mostly trans women of color, who have fought for trans rights over the years, many of which who have paid with their lives fighting for trans rights. These women who laid the foundations and made it possible for people like me to simply exist in the world. Made it possible for me to exist in the world as myself. Because of all this, and so much more, I am proud to be transgender, proud to be a trans woman. But you might be asking yourself, how did I get to this point? How did I get to the point of being proud of who I am? And obviously it did not come overnight. As I've talked about in the past, it was at 24 that I decided to transition, and one of the biggest motivators for me was that I was extremely depressed and I could not fathom growing old as a man. I got to a point where my choices were either try something drastic with at least a little bit of a chance of happiness, transitioning, or I would eventually kill myself. All these years of being bullied for being too girly, too emotional, or for people assuming that I'm gay. And on that last point, those of you that did assume I was gay, You were right, just not in the way you expected. And, I consider this just one of many just nice big fuck yous to all of the transphobes who taught me to hate myself, either intentionally or unintentionally, just for being who I am. I was able to start addressing these numerous internalized transphobic beliefs I held. I was able to start challenging them. I was able to identify what they were, able to find ways to challenge them, able to find more positive things about myself, identify my strengths, build myself up, kind of reconcile some of those pains in the past by finally reconnecting, my past self with my current self. Realizing that I can't just completely disconnect that and leave it in the past because there's so much about who I was growing up that made me who I am today, and I can't separate myself from that. But I have to do it in a way that empowers me, not brings me further down. And sure, I still have negative messages that pop up, largely related to how I perceive myself and assumptions I make about how others may perceive me. But I'm able to more easily move past this when I remember all of these things and when I remember all of the difficult barriers that I've been able to overcome, that I had the power to overcome to get to where I am in my life now. Remembering that I overcame all these challenges helps push me forward and gives me the confidence that, yes, I can overcome the next challenge. And I obviously want to recognize the privilege that I've also had that has allowed me to access medical transition things like surgeries and hormone therapy, things that have helped me in my journey, that have helped me build my own confidence because it's helped me feel more comfortable in my body, how I relate to others, and helped me in many cases pass more to other people. And kind of the last point I want to make is there's so many things that are involved in the gender transitions that many of us go through, and all of our journeys look different. But regardless, I could not have done any of this without the amazing support of people like my parents, family members, friends, the girlfriend I had at the time when I was coming out, my amazing therapists, all of you amazing people in this YouTube community that we have co-created. There are so many people out there that have pride and awe for the fact that we take so many difficult steps just to be ourselves. Steps that would terrify most people. And we do them just to be. Just to exist, just to live authentically. We take these steps, these scary steps, these risks, these things that may backfire and blow up in our face that have consequences, positive and negative, but we do it anyway because the chance of happiness far outweighs all that pain that we've tried to push away and never fully goes away until we try to do something about it. Don't forget, in this process, in this journey, you are not alone and you don't have to do any of this alone. Part of the pride I have today would not be possible without the support I have received and still receive from so many amazing people. I believe that pride is not just about our individual identities, our individual confidence, our individual experiences, but also the communities that we make, the communities that invite us in, the communities that welcome us just as we are. And I think I'll go ahead and stop there for today. Do you hold a sense of pride for any or all of your LGBTQ plus identities, or even other identities outside of the umbrella? Are you struggling to feel pride for one or more of your identities, and if so, what contributes to that struggle? For those of you that do hold a sense of pride, how did you get to that point? What helps you continue to feel that sense of pride? And just what does pride look like for you? Let me know all of this and so much more down in the comments below. And as always, Tipsy and I love you all and hope you're staying safe and sound. If you have not done so already, please be sure to give this a huge thumbs up and hit that subscribe button and notification bell. I love you all. Bye for now.